I think it's important for people to get your perspective as far as where crime's going. And I'm going to let you lead into your slide deck, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. You know, you touched on something as well. When you look at Washington State, I think when it comes to our law enforcement, our chiefs and sheriffs, and this is having been across the country to different seminars, different trainings, we really do have a very progressive law enforcement community in the state of Washington. The overwhelming majority of us all realize we need to continue to evolve or we become irrelevant. Yeah. And what does it look like when a law enforcement agency becomes irrelevant? It has a community that has turned on their law enforcement, that doesn't support their law enforcement, that feels unsafe around their law enforcement. And I say that because we both know overwhelmingly our community does support law enforcement. They support the sheriff's office and they support the police department. There will always be people that no matter what you do, they're unhappy. And it's the nature of the business, right? We are the most visible form of government. We're the only ones who are empowered and quite frankly expected by the government to use reasonable force to protect others. And it is also challenging because, you know, when you look at a lot of the discussions that do occur in Olympia, you have these outliers, and not that what happened to them isn't tragic, but they're an anomaly. And sometimes when you even dig deeper into what they're relaying to the legislators, you find there's a whole different set of facts that are not being relayed to the legislators. Unfortunately, oftentimes you don't know what those stories are until you're there, and then you're trying to do damage control afterwards and say, wait a minute, there's a lot more here that's not being shared with you. So the legislators are getting one perspective, and it really is these outliers, but the overwhelming majority of our officers, 99%, took this because they want to keep the community safe. You and I coming forward and speaking about our concerns, our worries, and quite frankly, our fears for the community, that is not self-serving. Why would we do that? If you look at the years of pushback we received from a very small segment of the group, why would we put ourselves through that? And quite frankly, we do it because it's the right thing to do, because we know what the truth is. We know this community supports us. And when you look at what our officers and deputies are doing every day, their job is every single day to go out and deal with victims, to deal with, quite frankly, evil. Someone who's been the victim of evil, someone who has witnessed that evil, or someone who's perpetrated that evil on that person. Every single day for the rest of your career, you're going to go out and have to deal with that evil. And so when we talk with the victims, and every single day we're hearing the same stories, and we're seeing a small group of people do it over and over again, we're going to obviously be concerned about the victims. We don't want this person who is oftentimes a one-person crime wave to continue to victimize the community. We want them to get help. But I think one of the lenses that is hard for a lot of folks to understand, because they're not dealing with them on the street at the time of arrest. They're dealing with them either in court, when they're cleaned up, they're calm, they're rational, they're maybe no longer on whatever narcotics they're on. They're seeing a different person, but they're not seeing that person as we see them right after they've committed these crimes. So we just have a different lens. And I do need to say, as you and I have discussed as well, thankfully the majority of the community does support us. Okay. And that's why we continue to do what we do, even though, you know, sometimes those attacks become very personal. And when it comes to labeling people, you know, one of the things I've realized over the years is when you label someone, it is easy to dismiss anything and everything they say after that point. You are X, so I no longer need to listen to you. You are irrelevant because I've already labeled you. And that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous. It's like, let's talk about the facts. Let's not label, let's not make it personal, but let's talk about the facts. We're more than willing, as we have a number of times, to have that conversation with you. So with that, I was asked to kind of review some of our crime stats. If we could go to the first slide. And go
next one slide.
Next slide. And okay, so I'm gonna, statistics, as most people know, can be very challenging as well. So I'm going to really give just a very brief Reader's Digest version of our crime. When you look at these two charts, on the left is violent crime over the last 5 years, on the right is property crime over the last 5 years. And one of the things we're hearing is that last year crime was down. But again, not trying to continue to pound the drum, but when you look at what our crime rate is doing versus the red 5-year trend line, you'll notice in 2021, the majority of the violent crime in 2021 is above that trend line. So what that means is for the majority of 2021, we are above our 5-year trend. In other words, violent crime is trending up. However, you're seeing that it's down 6.1%. That's because of the gains that we have made since 2021. So when you're looking at the overall gains, yes, we are down, and that's due to a lot of hard work, but the trend for 2021 shows an increase in that violent crime. And when you go to look at the property crimes on the right side of the screen there, look at about the middle of 2021. That's when those reforms went into effect. And that's when you will notice a huge spike in our property crimes, obviously above the 5-year trend line as well. And again, we can say, well, 2021 property crime overall is down 19%. But again, that's because of the gains that we had made since 2021. And you can see the gains we had made over the last 5 years. But you can see by 2021, especially the middle of the year when the reforms went into effect, property crime is above that 5-year trend line. So again, real quickly as well, can you go to the next slide? So we're looking at, obviously, violent crime. This is specific to homicides. Homicides definitely can fluctuate year to year, but we are looking at WASPIC. WASPIC is the Washington Sheriffs and Police Chiefs Association. You're looking at an increase of homicides of almost 50% compared to 2019. And murders overall have gone up almost 70% since 2016. So we're seeing an increase in a trend in homicides. Now we can say, well, homicides are going up, but there's also those that, but for the grace of God, weren't homicides, the aggravated assaults as well. So there's a nexus between homicides and aggravated assaults. With our medical advances, we're able to save a lot of people that otherwise would die. So I would argue that our murders will be tied into our aggravated assaults.
One of the things, Chief, that you focus on, you had 21 homicides, broke a record for the city. In 21, you had 14, which is still above your trend line period. For the city of Spokane Valley last year, we broke their homicide record by 3 times the number.
Yeah.
And this, this is a trend that we continually see moving up. I swear for the last month, we can't hardly get through a weekend without a shooting or a drive-by shooting. And it is getting very concerning for everybody out on the street. I hear it from the citizens, and they're very concerned. And my job, and I've always viewed what I do for the citizens, is to be their voice. And elected officials, I think, have forgotten that is their role. They are the citizens' voice, but it doesn't seem like very many of them want to listen to the voice anymore, even. And when you bring that voice forward, you're again labeled, whatever you want to label, and that is a cancellation type of move. If I want to cancel you, I'll just label you something, and therefore I know that if I stick that label on you, X amount of the public's not going to listen to you anymore, because you're evil. You can't be listened to, you can't be trusted, and I'm watching that not just in the political realm, but I'm watching that in the media realm also. This constant challenge of anything that law enforcement does or says. One of the things that I've always been amazed at, because let's face it, you have activist groups that are demanding more CIT training for SPD. And I look at that and go, what do you not realize that SPD was a trendsetter? 2005, you guys started CIT training. And I believe that 100% of your agency is CIT trained at the 40-hour level, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
How can they be demanding more? And we're trying to catch up with that. How can they demand more, or is it they just don't know what they're talking about, and it's just another label? You're anti-reform, you don't want CIT training. Your agency in this region led that effort from 2005 2005 on, 2007, we combined with excited delirium training, and quite frankly, we were demonized for that too, back in that time. It's really hard to understand the motivation behind these folks.